Hello and welcome to the Spread, NESN's football picks podcast of NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined as always by Ricky Doyle. Ricky, happy week 2.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
We actually have tangible stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, we saw actual football.
Yeah.
What were your, we'll get into our picks. This is what we do here. We make our 3 best bets for the week. We'll get into a lot of that, and we'll kind of use it as a way to get through some of the week 1 storylines. But I guess the number one top takeaway, big picture comes out of Monday night. Aaron Rodgers done for the season. That is unofficially official.
Yeah.
I don't think the Jets have made any announcements, but all the insiders have made it known that he has torn his Achilles and is done for the season. I don't mean to laugh. It's just
4 snaps
insane.
in, man.
Yeah.
4 snaps.
I know.
So I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is exactly why I hated the idea of backing the Jets in like the futures market, right? Like, for one, you're putting a tremendous amount of stock in a quarterback who, we outlined this last week, like 39 years old, dealing with preseason injuries. Didn't exactly elevate his previous team last season. Very publicly questioning his NFL future. And, oh, by the way, you're putting him behind a offensive line with question marks. And so obviously you can't predict the 4 snaps in for this thing to just completely go off the tracks. But now when you're looking at the shift in the Super Bowl numbers, you realize just how much of their success and how much of the optimism centered on one guy who himself had questions. Now you look at the Jets' season-long outlook, and yeah, they'll probably contend for a playoff spot still. There's a backdoor chance for them to even win the division, but from a Super Bowl standpoint, I don't know, man. It is and it's just the questions were already evident, and now it's just kind of a mess.
Yeah, it was. What was? They were. We're trying to look it up. 13, 16 to 1,
16 to 1, 18 to 1, that sort of range.
It's 50, 60 to 1. They have longer
65,
odds.
I think,
65 was the last one I saw at FanDuel. They have longer odds to win the Super Bowl than the Packers do at this point. I think that kind of just puts it in perspective, which directions things are going.
To me, that shows how inflated the number was, or how low the number was to begin with. Honestly, I'm looking at this. I almost like this number better than I liked their odds a few weeks ago.
So I looked it up trying to find what's the quickest someone's ever come back from an Achilles, and it's 6 months. So he's 6 months is not going to get it done. But I was thinking, is there a way that he could come back for the playoffs if they just go 9-8 and then find a way to get in? Because they won on Monday night.
That's
they found a way to win the game.
Getting
at 65, it's maybe worth.
Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl?
No.
But at that number, maybe you catch lightning in a bottle with Zach Wilson or some veteran quarterback that you bring in.
That's a fair point, depending on who they bring in.
There's obviously enough upside throughout the rest of that roster. And, I just look at the numbers now, going back to, what 16-1, 8-1, that range. But given all the question marks that surrounded Rodgers and the questions that surrounded this team in general, even then, I don't know, were they that much better off than, say, the Steelers or the Browns or the Broncos or one of these teams that was 45 to 1? Looking back, 16 to 1 to 18 to 1 for this roster, just
it would have to be
seemed very, very low.
Complete ceiling performance. Or something close to it, I guess. You could have gotten by with 80% of Rodgers, but to your point, the number wasn't very good. And as Mike Cole on NESNBets.com wrote on August 14th,
I know that guy.
Aaron Rodgers' Jets are awful season-long bet entering 2023. Right here in the midway through the story, this is also the first time Rodgers will play the majority of his games on artificial turf for a season. We've already seen him deal with a calf issue during camp. He's had various lower body ailments creep up in recent years. Compound that with questions on the offensive line. A few teams have blah blah blah. It was
right. It was hiding. It was hiding in plain sight.
Not shocking.
Yeah.
Right. I think the fact that it happened 4 plays into the season
that's the thing,
was obviously a major punch to the gut for Jets fans. Which I have no dog in that fight with the Jets and the whole Patriots thing and just being from around here. I don't really care about the Jets. I almost kind of felt bad for Jets fans who like had to wait all week. I mean, on top of waiting for like 50 years, but like had to wait all week. Finally, this is going to happen. They have the massive scene on 9/11. Rodgers comes running out with the flag. Everything's going great. Gets a raucous ovation coming onto the field. And like 4 plays in, it's all done. His career might be over.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is how jarring it is.
Yeah.
Like all of that, and then you just get some sweet chin music or right to the lips,
Yep.
and now it's just like, what would be worse though? Like that you get this out of the way now, and you move forward, you figure out your quarterback situation. What if he just sucked and like you went through the entire season and it never felt right?
Yeah.
And it like,
well, that's the thing. Is
at the very least, you're ripping the Band-Aid off, right? Like I know that's the ultimate like silver lining for this happening 4 snaps in the year, but like at least you know, right?
Andrew want to know.
There you go. There you go. So
we talked ourselves into being a net positive.
so, yeah, it's a net positive. I like the number where it's at now. No, like obviously it sucks, but like, it's just getting it out of the way now. Move forward, and we'll see what they do with that offense though. 'Cause this is very clear. Like they do not trust Zach Wilson.
No, and
nor should they. But
they've got like I was thinking about this morning too. Like they just went from a good to great quarterback coordinator combination to maybe the worst in the league, where it's like, Zach Wilson, who knows? The coordinator situation, obviously, Nathaniel Hackett, we saw what he was last year as a head coach. He was a fine coordinator, at least by name in Green Bay, but how much of that was Rodgers? How much of that was that LaFleur system? Like, this could be ugly, like offensively at least, unless they bring. I think they need to bring in. I mean, there are already reports out there talking to veterans about coming in. So, I think that's a big decision for them.
I remember NESN's own Sammy P last year doing which quarterbacks were most valuable to the point spread, and I don't know if we circled back on that for this season, but that is we're seeing that play out in real time, given just how huge the swings have been.
Yep. So. That it's a bummer because like you look at week 5, like the Denver game, now it's just a game. Yeah, like it's a Denver lost week 1 and the Jets are the Jets again. It's just there goes that. Like,
isn't it always the case? Like each year it feels like now, or like you look at the national TV schedule and games seemed so much better early in the season, then you get to the actual game and either the two teams both stink or like somebody's out or. And yeah, so to your point, like all the Jets matchups, you're just like,
I thought they are not playing on. I thought they were on Thanksgiving too. They're not. So there's that. But like even this week, and we will get to this one, the Cowboys Jets game looked like a great one on paper. Now it's look out below.
Yeah.
So there's that is one of the bigger bummers of this whole thing is like it was going to be a fascinating storyline, and like even if you were rooting for it to blow up in the Jets' faces, this is not the way you wanted it to. Like, that was my thing. It's like, I wanted this to happen, not the injury, but, like, I wanted just to go poorly and, like, see just the the dysfunction of the whole thing as it goes on, not, just never.
Did you watch Hard Knocks?
No.
Yeah, me either. I don't know. That show just, like, doesn't really do it for me anymore. Yeah. But I'd really like to, like, retroactively watch it now. Like, I want to go back and just... Knowing what we know now, you're just like, oh,
I know.
Damn.
Well, like I guess it was the Monday night countdown. Rodgers talking about like manifesting Super Bowl wins and things like that. That's a tough break for manifestation.
Do you think his career is over? He comes back.
I think he's
not gonna go
cocky enough that he doesn't want to go out this way. I do think that seems like a very difficult injury comeback for a 40-year-old. Like. I think Dan Marino did it. He came back and was really good, but he did it when he was like 34. So Rodgers turned 40 in October. It'd be super weird if he does retire because then it's like he played 20 years with the Packers, then 4 snaps with the Jets, and like it's just that's a bummer that we even had to go through that. Like if all things being equal, I just wish he retired. But I think
that'd be a great flea market jersey in a few years, though.
Yeah,
like,
I guess he probably tries to come back though. If I were a betting man, to tie it all back in. So, if you were a betting man or woman in week 1, hopefully you loaded up on road teams. Road teams last week went 10-6 straight up, 12-4 against the spread. Cleveland, Washington, Atlanta, and the Jets, the only 4 home teams to cover. And then 12 of the 16 games went to the under. not including one of the games that I picked for the show last week. So that's a good job by me finding one of the 4 to go to the over. I went 8-8 for my week 1 picks against the spread at NESN.com and NESNBets.com. You also went 8-8, so I'll take 8 wins in week 1. That's fine by me.
Subjects of mediocrity.
We are the human coin flip.
If there was ever any doubt over how mediocre we truly are,
we are reminded
right
of everyone.
there,
Yep.
right?
Although you
Right
did
in front of
win
your face.
of your 3 best bets here on the spread, you won 2 out of 3, or 3 and your 1, or your 3 and your 2.
I believe it was the 3 and the 1. Yes.
Okay, so you have 4 points units. We're simplifying the math this year.
Yeah.
I hit my 3 unit, missed on the other 2, so a fine week, I suppose. Should we get into our picks for week 2 here?
Sure. Yeah. Unless you had any other big time takeaways.
No,
from
we can
week
get
1.
into it if it comes up over the course of our conversation. I don't want to, I think the people are here for the picks.
That is so
obviously.
true.
So let's give them what they want. What's your 3 unit play for week 2 of the NFL season?
So 3 unit play. I'm going to take the Seahawks, getting 5.5 in Detroit. This is, we talk about this every year, like going into week 2 and like the knee jerk reactions and the, just trying to figure out what the overreactions are. And this is a prototypical overreaction spot, right? Like you got the Lions coming off a road win over the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. The Seahawks coming off about as bad a performance as you could have, getting smashed by the Rams, particularly in the second half of that game. You look back, Lions were 3-point favorites on the look ahead, so now you're essentially doubling it, because I do think you might be able to get a 6 out there. But really, I mean, when you take a step back and you sort of start to weigh the perception versus the reality, I mean, these 2 rosters are similarly talented. Like it's reflected in them being both in the over/under 9.5 win range before the season. I think too, just sort of going into those week 1 games, like the Lions benefited from a lot of drop passes. There was a pick 6 in there. Offense did sputter after a quick start, so they're very much a regression candidate going into week 2. I think on the flip side, the Seahawks are a team that, I have faith in Pete Carroll's ability to get them ready to go. So just sort of like the institutional ability to bounce back. Their depth at wide receiver, I think, is going to be pose a little bit of a problem for Detroit's defense this week. So this is just, for me, that's a big number. I would not be surprised if by the end of the year, the Seattle is the better of these 2 teams. I just think it's kind of a coin flip. And if I'm getting now
You're up to
5.5 or 6.
6.
Like,
The NESN Bets live odds page
6.
consensus is 6.
6.
As
So-
it is on our screen right
so
there.
maybe I'll take that.
Just the thing on
Oh,
right
all right.
underneath us says 6. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think-
this morning was 5.5 when we were
I think you might
exchanging
have
our.
paid off producer Liam on that one.
He's giving me the extra.
Hey, put a little
So 6 points. 6 points.
half
it is.
point in wherever
I will
you
take
can.
the 6 points
Yeah.
then.
All right.
Yeah. No, it is just like the overreaction spot for me.
So like this is my big issue with this game, because my natural inclination was to be on the same side here. Are we too sharp to? Not us. Not the 2
Yeah,
of us.
no, I was
Are we
gonna
too
s-
sharp?
I would not.
End of question. Are we too, as a betting NFL community, whatever, almost too cognizant of the overreaction at this point?
Probably, yeah.
And so, like, I think there's a handful of games this week where I'm going to be on fading. Like, I'm with you. Like, I'll be on.
So not overreacting to the overreactions.
Oh, now I got a
Right?
popsicle headache. I'm not disregarding, but I'm not overreacting to week 1. Yeah, I guess it's.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
I
you're
gu-
saying.
yeah, I
You're
think
not
so.
overreacting
Jesus
to the
Christ, that
overreactions.
was- So, like.
But so my thing.
But
with
there's
that
a chance there. I'm going in saying there's a chance I'm wrong. I think there's a chance you're wrong about the Seahawks. I think they probably overachieved last year, so it would not surprise me if they were a 7-10 team this year. You know what I mean? So on paper, like getting 6 here in this spot, knowing what I know from last year and just 1 week of this year, I kind of have to take the points here. I feel like I'm compelled to take the points. But if they lose by 20, I wouldn't be shocked either, because I just think maybe this is what they are now, because they didn't look great in week 1 for sure.
Your initial point though about like the are we too sharp? not us, the collective we. Like, that is the case nowadays, though, right? Like, I mean, if we were doing this show back in 1997, like, I feel like our hit rate would probably be a lot stronger, right? Because it's easier to identify those advantages, whereas now, I mean, you get to the end of the week and it's literally a coin flip.
Everyone's too smart. Or
You know,
there's
like,
too much information out there. Like you're not gonna you're not gonna find a stone that hasn't been turned over.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you could sit here and tell you all the reasons that I think that, that this number is off or whatever. But ultimately, the number is the number for a reason.
Yeah.
And people way smarter than me are the ones making the number.
But
it's like,
or they're way smarter than the ones betting into the number and making a number for you.
But we got a show to do, so we got to say something, right?
Exactly.
We can't just sit here and flip 3 coins and be on our way. Although we probably have better luck that way.
That's
so
true.
Who
We
the hell
should
knows?
just do that one of these weeks without telling anyone.
What's your 3 unit?
I like Pittsburgh on Monday night. Hopefully I didn't just turn this off. I pushed a button. I wasn't sure what it was. I like Pittsburgh as a 2-point home underdog against Cleveland. We've got a Monday night doubleheader, by the way, in case you did not realize. I think this is the nightcap of that. I could be wrong.
I don't like that. But
I don't either. I think there's like 3 weeks of it too. So, but I like this is again. It's gonna look like a complete like trying to zig and when there's the zagging because of overreactions in week 1. But you go back, look at the look ahead line. It was Pittsburgh, I think, laying a point as recently as middle of last week. So it seems like we've seen a field goal swing based solely on week 1 results. I guess maybe the Cam Hayward injury for Pittsburgh is a factor as well. But you look at the other side, Cleveland lost Jack Conklin, one of their offensive tackles, so then they've got to turn to a rookie. I think DeJuan Jones, who's going to play, against a pass rush that, again, is down Cam Hayward, but still has T.J. Watt. Also, I mean, non-zero chance J.J. Watt is playing for the Steelers at some point in the near future. I think that's something to monitor. I'm just throwing that out there. That the internet seems to think that they should try to do that. You go back to week 1, Pittsburgh, they got walloped by San Francisco. We were both on the wrong side of that one. I have to stick to my conviction that I think Pittsburgh is going to be better this year. They ran into a 49ers team that was not hurt by the fact that they had to go across the country, right? Because it's week 1. They probably were benefiting from the fact that they had all year or all summer to game plan for week 1. Granted, Pittsburgh had the same advantages. They just didn't handle them the right way. I think you look at the Browns, as good as they looked in week 1, they are not as good on either side of the ball as San Francisco is. I think especially offensively, the Browns are going to struggle to move the ball at times. We saw that even in week 1. Deshaun Watson, I'm still not sold on. So I think going into into Pittsburgh here, Monday night, place is going to be rocking. I just think it's a tough spot for Cleveland. You look at what the Browns, under Jim Schwartz, the defense looked awesome. They blitz a ton though. Kenny Pickett, at least through 15 weeks last year, had a 73% completion rate against the blitz. Passer rating over 106. That dropped off significantly because of 3 bad games down the stretch, but I think he showed he's pretty good against the blitz, and I think they're going to find opportunities to get the ball out in space to some of their playmakers. I just think it's a slight bounce back with a coach, Mike Tomlin, who feels kind of like in the Pete Carroll mold, right? Probably be ready to go, address some of the issues. But it's one of those ones where it's like maybe I was just wrong about Pittsburgh, right? Like, that's the thing. I could be looking at this, and I'd be wrong about Cleveland, too. I'd be wrong about both of them, but then at least I can say, you know what?
Yeah.
I got it wrong. Whoops.
Yeah, I was going to say that you raised a really good, many good points, Mike. I don't want to sell you short, but one of the points you raised, like sticking to your conviction, your preseason conviction. And we talked about this before last week, too. You're buzzing over there.
I know,
yeah, so that the commenter, you said that you do not run. We have living proof in the moment that you got your steps in.
Phone ringing. I got stuff going off. I apologize. Very unprofessional. I got a lot going on right now.
No, but like we said last week going into week 1, like separating your outlook on the specific matchups from how you view a team for the rest of the season. And like that's still kind of at play now, right? Like you go into the year and you feel a certain way about a team, and you come out, you watch week 1, and then it's like you can't abandon ship after 1 week, right? Like
no.
Unless you're totally swayed by whatever happened.
Maybe after 2 weeks, but
yeah. And I think that for me, like that was the thing about Seattle. Like I still think they're going to be good.
Yeah.
And And yeah, to your point about like just digging your heels in for a week on Pittsburgh. Maybe we will get to a point where we got to start reevaluating teams, but it's like it's 1 week, It's weird.
I think the more I think about it, it has just as much to do with Cleveland, who I'm not totally sold on yet.
Yeah.
So, because I think this is again 20-18.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of points. I guess to get this, Pittsburgh probably has to win, but if they do, then it's 17. I think this is a low-scoring game as well.
So I'm kind of applying that logic, I guess, to my 2-unit pick, being the Bears getting 3 in Tampa Bay. Bears just getting smoked by the Packers. Buccaneers pulling the upset against the Vikings. And so, like, this is another game where I just look at and, like, if you have doubts about Justin Fields' long-term potential, fine. If you have doubts about the Bears' defense, fine. But comparatively speaking, for me, it's hard to sit there, look at these two rosters, and believe that the Buccaneers are better than the Bears right now. And if I'm getting 3 points, I'm gonna jump on that. And like I said, maybe we'll reevaluate in a few weeks. Because like nothing I saw in week 1, from the Bucs standpoint at least, leads me to believe that they're any better than I expected them.
They should have lost. I mean,
like
credit to them for forcing the turnovers, but Minnesota marched down the field on them a lot. It feels like every one of the turnovers was like at the goal line, and just so
3
like
turnovers,
said,
2 in scoring position.
Credit to them for forcing those turnovers, but if they don't get those, that game looks completely different.
Yep.
I guess that's maybe a thing on the Vikings we can get to at some point too, where it's like these are the games you won last year. But I think it's a good point looking at the fact that like I don't know, these two teams are pretty similar, and they're bad.
Be 2 bad teams, right? Like, so like maybe your opinion changed on the Bears. Like you think that because they were that like sexy sleeper pick coming in this year, despite having some serious flaws. Like they were right there, and you saw them rear their ugly head in week 1. But like going into this matchup, I still think the Bucs are, at the end of the day, going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And so like that's where I'm at with this. Nothing they did, like I said, in week 1 changed my opinion in that matter. Averaged 3.6 yards per play and allowed 5.9 yards per play, to your point about them just not doing a lot offensively and you're giving up a ton of yards. Look at, the Bears. I will say that, so Action Network does their like luck rankings. I think they call them bad beat rankings now. Said the Bears were the second unluckiest team in week 1. So take that for what it's worth.
Sure.
I think, you when you have a pick 6, the 3 fumbles that they lost, didn't convert on, like, I think it was the first drive when they had like a 4th and 1 from their own 40 or something. So there was a level of wackiness right there, not to write off their struggles, but for me, this pick centers more around the Bucs than the Bears, and just not buying into buying into their week 1 win. Even though the Vikings might stink too.
I agree. I'm not going to add a whole lot to Bears Bucs, because it's Bears Bucs. My 2-unit play, I'm taking the over in Chargers Titans. Games in Tennessee. Total is set at 45.5. I'm completely ignoring the fact that these two teams played, I think it was 17-14 game last year in December. I think you look at Tennessee, they drew a pretty tough matchup in week 1 against a really good Saints defense playing on the road. You look at that Saints secondary, at least some names. I mean, those guys, I don't know if they're still at their peak, whether it's Lattimore or Matthew, but they definitely have some talent in that secondary, whereas we just saw the Chargers get absolutely cooked at home by the Dolphins. They gave up a league-high 8.2 yards per play. The run defense has been a major issue in recent years. They looked decent against the run last week against Miami, but I think you're facing a much stronger rushing attack this week that probably will look a little better than it did last week. The Titans did in New Orleans. I think, too, the Titans don't have a Tyreek Hill, who just absolutely went off last week. But I think maybe this is a DeAndre Hopkins coming out game with the Titans. I think there's opportunity. Like maybe again, Ryan. Go back to this evolving theme for the show. Ryan Tannehill's not good. I don't think he's as bad as he was last week. So I think there are reasons to kind of buy back into the Titans. I don't think they're going to score 30 points here, but I think they can get to 20-22 and
Yeah.
let the Chargers do the rest. The Chargers offense looked pretty good. I still think they have another level to go. Granted, the Titans defense did look, good in New Orleans, but I just think this is obviously a much tougher offense. I just think this has, a 27-24 for me, and that gets us safely home. So I'll take the over in that game. Not a very popular pick by what I saw. I think it's like 95% of the tickets are on the under in this one, but I think there's also a chance that, 31-17 type of deal if the Chargers get right. So there's a lot of ways to get home with this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, the Titans feel like one of those teams this year that I don't know how many games they're going to win ultimately. Yeah. Like there's without question a path for them to make the playoffs in that division, but like each week they're going to be,
if that's the case,
they're going to be a pain, right?
They have to win that like a game like they did last week though. Like
yeah. That was there for the taking.
Yeah.
But
and
like
they might have gotten porked by the refs too.
But they're a team that like seems like a good spot where they go up against a team where there's a disparity in talent, but they're well coached enough. They do have enough talent themselves. Like they can just grind it out and sort of turn the game ugly, I guess, because that's what they want to do here.
I don't like
right?
that. I don't like talking about that when I'm on the over here. But
well, I mean, yeah,
I still think that number's low enough that they could turn it ugly and still kind of
defensive touchdown.
Yeah, sure, yeah, okay. Thank you for talking about it.
Speaking of ugly, that's where I'm leaning with my 1 unit pick. So this total when I sent this to you earlier was at 41.5. It's now down to 39.5. Whatever we go with. I think I like the under either way, but I felt much better when I was looking at 41.5. Jets-Cowboys. I mean, we touched on the Jets quarterback situation and just the ceiling being so low for that offense with Zach Wilson behind center. Now they're going to Dallas to face that Cowboys defense who we talk about not overreacting to one performance, but I don't think that necessarily applies to that case. Like, this is a continuation of what we saw for a good chunk of last season from the Cowboys defense. I think they were second in EPA per play last season behind the 49ers, fourth in success rate. Since Dan Quinn's become the defensive coordinator, they've had 22 games out of 35 with multiple takeaways. I think they had 7 sacks against the Giants, 6 different players with 4 or more pressures. So this is just the talent's there. The results have been there for the better part of 2 seasons now. So that was legit. Like that's one performance I looked at. I'm like, that feels real to me. That feels tangible. I think that's something that can carry out through the entire season. And then with the Jets just having to adjust on the fly here offensively, things could unravel and get ugly for them pretty quick. And not to mention, I mean, the Jets defense in its own right, obviously really good. So this is a game where could see some classic Jets turnovers, which leads to Dallas points, and then on the other side, just maybe the Jets defense trips up the Cowboys offense a bit. I just see this being a low-scored game and getting under that 41.5.
I'm kicking myself because I wrote for NESNBets.com on Monday morning the opening lines analysis for week 2, and centered around the Cowboys. They were 3-point favorites at home against the Jets. I was like, if you like the Cowboys, and if you're not totally sold on the Jets, go get that 3 right now. Because if Aaron Rodgers struggles and they don't, the offense doesn't look good, they look disjointed, they look like they're still trying to find their way, that number is going to go up, and here it is at 7.5.
Yeah.
Granted, it went, so there you go, I guess, the 4.5 points for the spread.
Big swing, yeah.
And that totals, it's going to be hard for both of them, yeah. I think it's, you mentioned it, but the Jets defense being elite is a huge part of that too. So
and the other thing too,
because like if you go look at the Cowboys, the offense wasn't major
great
driving factor.
Right, you see that final number that you see the 40 spot they throw up there, and you're just assuming they're humming along offensively. But the story of that game obviously was beat the defense, the special teams.
Yep.
So there's a real chance they come out this week and the offense just isn't really there for them, and so that just compounds the offensive issues across the board. You combine that with the Jets offense, and yeah, this could be, one of these games where it's in the high teens, a 20-17 type of game. I think that the concerns about the Cowboys offense maybe sputtering a bit against the Jets defense is why I'm gonna steer clear of taking a side in this game. It's just why the total more than anything appeals to me.
Fair enough. Speaking of totals, I'm sticking with another one for my 1-unit play. I'm taking the under Sunday Night Football and Patriots-Dolphins. This game's at Gillette. The total right now is set at 47.5. I just think, the Patriots defense, it's where they've invested heavily. It's what Bill Belichick knows best. It's what Bill Belichick loves best. I think that defense showed me enough to believe they have a chance to be very good this season. So I will believe that they are going to be very good until I see otherwise. I think you also look at the fact that they're playing Miami, a familiar foe. There's nothing really that should surprise Bill Belichick. This is year 3 or 4 of the Tua the Tua era in Miami. This is year 2 of the McDaniel era. You go back, I think, I deleted my notepad. I lost my notepad file, but in the last 6 games between these two teams, the Dolphins are averaging 21 points per game in those meetings. They've got one game where they went in the 30s. Everything else has been relatively low scoring. Belichick has largely had answers for Tua, despite the fact that he hasn't been able to beat him. Tua's 4-0 against the Patriots. So I just look at that and say, let's tap the brakes a little bit on how great that offense looked. Again, we're kind of like weaving my 2 picks in here where it's like I'm fading the Chargers defense in that Titans game, but I'm not totally sold yet on that the Dolphins offense because they've faced the Chargers last week. I just, you look at the other side of the ball too. Vic Fangio still kind of working out the kinks. Maybe it's still an issue. They gave up a ton of points last week, but I believe in the talent on that Dolphins defense. I think they'll get a little bit better. I think the Patriots offense, I still need to see a little bit more out of it. They certainly passed the week 1 test despite losing that game. I just think you look at the fact the Dolphins gave up 4 touchdown drives of 75 yards or more last week. I think they find a way to kind of screw their heads on straight, maybe do a little bit better tackling. You fix a couple small issues from week 1, and their defense is going to look a hell of a lot better. So I just, there's offensive line injuries on both sides of the ball here. Miami's playing back-to-back road games. Maybe that does something to stifle the offense. I think this game probably plays more to, a 24-17 type of deal. So, again, it's one of those ones where it's like maybe the Patriots' lack of continuity at the back end of the secondary. Like, maybe this is where not having Devin McCourty starts to really feel like an issue. But I think early in the season they're going to be buttoned up. It feels like a lot of points for when the Patriots defense involved.
That's, I think, my one concern about it is like with the Patriots rookies defensively played very well in week 1
against very good receivers too. Like
right,
at least in the secondary.
And so like my fear though is like are we jumping the gun by accepting that as like the norm going forward? Like I could also
that's fair.
I could also see a situation
they're
where
gonna have bad games at some point.
Right, and I could see this being one of those games where, when you have these rookies, you kind of want to slow the game down, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and like now you're going against a team that plays with its hair on fire.
Yep. And
it's if things were to snowball, it could happen quickly, and it could happen throughout the entire game. So that's my only concern about it. Also, the Patriots, man, like they're still so tough to figure out, right?
Yeah.
Like it just they need to start winning some of those games.
Yeah,
like, that's just
they're tricky too because like that was my only bet last week because I overreacted to the injury report when they didn't have a winner, they didn't have Cole Strange. I'm like they're gonna get murdered up the middle, and like I had no business winning that bet because like
that's the thing,
they
right?
came out and played well and played efficient,
and they still couldn't cover,
and they still they couldn't find a way to get it done at the end either. So
that felt like the Eagles were like they jumped out to that 16-0 lead and kind of threw it in cruise control.
Yeah, especially considering they didn't do anything in the preseason. So like they're probably like, let's just get out of here. And,
yep.
We'll build on it. So yeah, so that's that. You want to do show and tell and we'll go home?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
What's your show and tell this week?
What did I have? What did I find in my house on the way out the door today? I don't even know if I have a take for this, but I
Okay.
just wanted to bring it in because it was sitting on my bureau, and thought you'd like it. A little Packers.
Oh, sure.
Foam finger. Nice.
Yeah, of course.
So because I have a Packers Super Bowl futures bet that
Oh,
I
do ya?
placed on. I guess I just wanted to bring it in and get this on record in
Yeah,
case
fair,
things take off from here. I made this bet on February 26th at 5:18 p.m. In case you were curious
Yeah,
about
I
that.
was actually
I got him
super
at
curious.
40-1. So this is when Aaron Rodgers' future was still hanging in the balance a little bit, and I think I like it even more now than I did then. I think they're right around there probably. I think they're 42-1 at FanDuel right now. I don't know.
So you didn't- yeah.
The more I look at the Packers, I think they might be a playoff team. I think they're one of the more fascinating teams, second tier NFC teams for me, because there is like that untapped potential. Like we sat here the season preview episode and we're like, who's like what's that team in the NFC that can take the next step? That if you're just gonna throw up a sort of a long shot Super Bowl bet, like what is that team? I'm starting to come around on the Packers, but you know why I took them and why I have this foam finger.
Why?
So this entire bet was predicated on I was at Dollar Tree and they had
Of course.
the foam finger machine that you put I think it was like 3/4, so 75% foam finger. And I said, whatever team that I pull out of this thing is going to be my first futures bet of the 2023
That's
season.
a good one to get then. in that regard.
And yeah, there was no turning back, and this is the one I got. And so I think you want to talk about manifesting things.
There you go.
I think the foam finger says it all. So I don't need to sell you on the idea.
No, I would love that. I hope you win your bet.
But yeah.
It's a
Could have been better, could have been worse.
an
but
adorable foam figure.
all in all, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the chips fell.
Yeah, of course. So
So.
it's kind of tough that you got a 41 ticket and it's at 42 right now after they won in week 1, but
Yeah.
always be shopping, I guess. But hey, the day takes you where the day takes you. So it's not your fault. All right, for mine I've got am I looking over here, I guess? You can't read it, but it says it's a tea packet.
See, would you pull that out of the break?
It says positive energy. No, this actually I bought
that's home tea.
This is my own tea. Yeah.
All
This
right.
is not one of the benefit of the teas that we have. But it's sweet tangerine, positive energy. Let's disregard the sweet tangerine, but I guess you could apply it to the Miami Dolphins, for example.
Sure.
I'm looking at teams of positive energy coming out of week 1, and if I were to kind of reinvest in the Super Bowl market, I think I would be looking for teams that won in week 1. If you go back and look at this, and Dov Kleiman, he wrote this for Outkick. I'm surprised, and luckily this isn't blocked on the intro web, but this is a story from last year. We will add the Chiefs to this. 46-10-1 Super Bowl winners record in week 1. So if you won in week 1, you're on your way to winning a Super Bowl, perhaps. So
All of those teams.
let's
yes.
eliminate 8 teams, or excuse me, 16 teams. The Packers, that's good news for your futures bet.
Yeah.
If
Keep
you
talking. I'm
if
listening.
we want to lean into the sweet tangerine and the orange and the purple of all this, that bodes well for a team like the Dolphins that won an impressive week 1 game. You also look at the fact that of the 300, this was again going into last year, since 2002, of the 319 teams that won team openers, 166, more than half, went to playoffs, and 112 won division titles. So, and of the 317 that lost, only 78 went to the playoffs. So it really actually does help to get a win early on in the season. So I'm going to burn one of these tea bags and open this up too. And sometimes there's well, that one stinks, but they're like little fortune cookies. But I am drinking one of my teas, and it says, when fear is forcing you to give up, call upon your heart's courage to continue. So I guess that could go to the losers too. But
There you go.
I just think, look at teams that won week 1 and make a Super Bowl bet on them if you want. I think I would look at a team like the Dolphins.
Yeah. So as we sat here and said, don't overreact, we've slowly turned it into don't overreact to the overreactions.
That checks out.
And basically we're coming away from this, and I have no idea where the hell we stand on anything, really.
It's ever evolving. It's a fluid situation.
Circle back in week 3
That's
is what I'm
right.
saying.
We will probably completely disregard our own takes this week and
Yeah.
contradict ourselves. And
I'll
say
probably go
something
right
else.
back to Dollar Tree and try to get another foam
Yeah,
finger.
we'll
Maybe
be-
try to get an AFC
Or
team
we'll
this
somehow
time.
be talking about the Packers
I'll be-
again in show and tell.
I'll have an exact matchup bet by next week
There you go.
if they still got it there. So
Yeah. If you got any good tea, make sure you pick me up some. So I
I
can
will,
throw it at
I
my
will.
Desk.
That's a good spot to get tea.
It
Too.
is,
Like
yeah,
it's one of those
exactly,
things. Like
yeah.
I don't really
Like a job
I don't
lot
wanna-
type of
Yeah,
deal,
I don't
too,
want to overpay for tea.
No, you don't want it. It's just
you know?
tea. Yeah.
It's
You're not drinking it all
go
the
throw
time.
some in the harbor.
It's very synonymous with the
Yes.
the area from which we are from. So yes, topical. So, anything else?
No.
All right, let's get out of here. That's Ricky. I'm Mike. This has been the Spread NESN's Picks podcast. Thanks for joining us. See you again next week. We are number one.